Hey guys, today I wanted to talk about money on the Appalachian Trail. I'll go over what I spent, what I carried, like debit, cash, and that kind of thing, and different ways that you can save money if you're trying to do it on a budget. On my hike, I kept all my receipts and wrote down everything that I spent. So I put it all into a spreadsheet, and I'll put a link in the description. You can click on that and view it or download it, and you can see on the left I have what I spent on each thing. The next column is what the item is, and then where it was, then the date on the far right. And some of them I didn't keep track of too well of where it was or what the date was, so as it goes on to the end of the hike, there's sections where I missed out on that. In planning for my hike, I was looking online trying to find things to find out how much I should save up to start my hike, how much other people were spending, and there was a lot of people who just said around $4,000. They didn't know what they had spent, and they never really kept track of it. They just said roughly that's what they spent. So I ended up saving $4,000 just because that was a number that I had heard a lot of times, but nobody really knew what they spent. And so before I left, I decided I would write down everything. So that's what you have here. In total, I ended up spending $2,156 and 58 cents. And that includes 2 hotel stays. I bought a tent while I was on trail, 2 new pairs of shoes, plus a couple things being mailed to me from home. I was able to spend less than some people because my family has a lot of friends along the trail, so there was times when I would get to a town and we would know someone in that town, so I wouldn't have to pay for a place to shower. I probably stayed with maybe 10, 12 different friends of the family, where I could go there, stay the night, shower, do laundry, and then they would drive me to a grocery store and resupply. So that saved me quite a bit of money. And my family came up 3 times, I think, and met me. Not all the times they stayed, but one time we stayed in a hotel, so that also saved money. So in some of these towns you would add a little money for that. Also, I live in Georgia, so my family and I drove up to the start of the trail. I didn't have to pay for a shuttle or an airplane ticket. If you live in another state, that might be something you would add to this. And plus, at the end, I flew home. That you would add that, but I didn't include that in my budget because my budget was just from Springer to Katahdin, and I ended up getting a buddy pass, so it was like $90 to fly home, so that was cheap as well. Also in this list, I had to include buying a new cook set and a pot, and I made a new stove and had to get a new alcohol container and a food bag because my stuff was stolen. My plan was to stay under $1 a mile, so that way I would have $1,800 left over, and I was able to do that. At one point, at the beginning, I was sticking to my budget really tight. I would go into towns and I wouldn't stay anywhere. I stayed somewhere the first week, and then it was a while before I paid to stay anywhere. And I would just go in, I would go to like a Dollar General if I could, or a grocery store, and just buy things like ramen, Pop-Tarts, just the cheap, normal backpacking food, and I would just leave that afternoon. So I would plan to do an 8 to 10 mile day with a town stop in the middle. That way I would be close to town, I would go in the afternoon and still have time to do some hiking to get out and get to a nearby shelter before it got dark. And doing that saves you a lot of money because you're not staying in a town, paying for a hotel, which if you split it, it could be $40, $50 per person, or some of the places are cheaper, it might be $20, $25 a person. And then going out to eat, getting a burger, so all those things can add up really quick, and you can easily spend $100 in each town. With me, I carried my debit card and some cash. I carried about $40 to $60 the whole time. I didn't really ever carry more than $60. There was only one time I had to go to an ATM because I was down to like $13 and I had to pay for a meal, that they had a limit, you had to spend a certain amount to use the debit card. But that was in Stratton, Maine, and there was a lot of people who said things get more expensive as you go north, but I didn't really notice that to be that true. There was some things that were maybe $5 more for a hotel. Some of the hotels were more expensive up north along the trail because they were nicer hotels. Down south you have a bunch of trashy hotels that they're $35-40 a night for a reason, and up north where you're paying $60 a night, it's because it's a nicer hotel. But in general, things didn't just get more expensive, and I also heard people say that trail magic gets less as you get up north. That's not true. I would say it's even the opposite. The trail magic gets better, and the people up there gave things that, like, they would just give you rides. They drive by the road. Up in Maine, there was people who would drive by the road that the trail goes by just to see if there was hikers to pick them up. They weren't even headed out that way. Another thing to consider is in Vermont, there's a lot of shelters and campsites where you have to pay to stay at. And it's listed in AWOL's guidebook most people use that. I think it's listed in Guthook as well, and you'll definitely hear about it as you get up because everyone's complaining about it. I think it's $5 a night, and they have people that stay out there because the privies are near the lakes, and they have to do more to keep the privy from getting into the lakes. They have someone that stays out there full time and watches the shelter and takes care of stuff and cleans the path and things like that. The shelters aren't exactly nice, but they have them to take care of them. And so $5 isn't that bad, but if you're on a budget, it's easy to walk right past it. They don't care if you camped 20-40 yards down the trail. And also there was one time I got to a shelter, rolled in right at sunset, set up, and then got up in the morning and the person never came to take my money, so got that for free. That's another thing to consider. That's in Vermont. And then also in the White Mountains, there's some in the huts. I had heard that you could pay to sleep on the floor in the huts, and that's not true. And maybe you can in an emergency, but I went up to one of the huts and asked them about that. They had already had some people for work for stay, so they were full, and they told me about a stealth campsite that you're not really allowed to camp in the White Mountains, but the people that work there just told me to go there, so I went there instead. At Lake of the Clouds hut, there is the dungeon, which it's basically just, I think, 6 bunks or 8 bunks down in this cement room. People say it's nasty. It's not that bad. I walked down there and looked at it, and you can pay to stay there. I don't remember what it was, $10-15 to stay there, and those things you have to pay with cash, so know that. But if you plan your timing right, you can avoid all of those things, which is mostly what I did. I didn't really end up paying for those things. So that video was a lot longer than I thought it would be, so I'm gonna split that into 2 videos, and I'll link it in the description when I upload it next week. And thank you guys for watching. If you want to check out the vlogs that I made while I was on trail, I'll link them. You can click on the little eye that's up there. Thanks for watching.